So who does the work and then who pays for it? Helen, do you want to lead on that, please?
I think you're quite right to pick that up, Suzanne. And I think this is somewhere where, sadly, people will be looking more closely, particularly in current arrangements on return to work at existing leases. If they haven't done so already, they will be spotlighting on how those changes can be made, but also how costs can be shared. Some of the immediate concerns on recovery of cost of adaptations and perhaps enhanced services such as cleaning, commonly those types of things in buildings are obviously managed through the service charge provisions, and those have always traditionally been negotiated, so I don't see anything new there. It will go back, as both Neil and Peter have said, to communication, landlord-tenant discussions, and indeed with multi-let buildings you can expect some discussion around that. For example, commercial factors might influence in terms of the management factors for the building, such that an occupier can't have its own cleaning company. It may be that a multi-let building may require buy-in to a standard set of cleaning that the landlord will do, or building maintenance that the landlord will do, for example, for the future, beyond the parameters of what has been previously considered. And there will need to be negotiation there. But specific wording in existing leases is likely to be looked at, and certainly some tenants, for example, may have agreed a maximum cap on those costs, and so that will provide some interesting debate, I'm sure. Other things may be looked at in terms of facilitation, not just cost, and I have in mind things like, no smoking within buildings and so on. Landlords usually have provisions under agreements for lease to make rules concerning the building and how they're managed, and that may be utilised in a proactive way here to facilitate some of these adaptations, and perhaps also to do so in a way that is economically viable for all those occupiers within the building. And so there may be some double thinking there around rules and service charge arrangements. For new lease discussions, I think that's going to be an interesting one, because in addition to those items I've mentioned, and bearing in mind that we may not be out of the woods and there may be a risk of further lockdowns and indeed further pandemics as we move into these environmental and pandemic type challenges in the years ahead, this is an area I think we can see as coming up on the agenda for commercial negotiation. There's been so much in the press about discussion around rent, and indeed there has been some government intervention in terms of claims around that, which has been hotly debated. But I think reality is that the industry is going to look, the real estate industry is going to be looking more closely at these items in new lease discussions, and perhaps looking at cessor of rent adjustments or arrangements in terms of a negotiated structure. Suzanne, you may well have your own thoughts on that, because I know it's something that you've had some experience of, but that certainly would be my thoughts, is that these things will require, unfortunately, some detailed consideration of legal agreements.
Yes, I think for existing leases, all the service charges are negotiated bespoke to each building, certainly, and you need to read the fine print